It's one of the oldest questions in military history. What happens when the Macedonian Phalanx, the weapon Alexander the Great used to conquer the world, meets the Roman legion? In 197 BC, the question got its answer. In a single morning, on a fog-covered ridge in Thessaly that the locals called the Dog's Heads, Cynoscephalae. Here's the remarkable part. Neither commander wanted to fight that day. The battle that handed the Mediterranean to Rome began as an accident. 4 years earlier, Rome had beaten Hannibal at Zama. Carthage was finished, and Rome discovered it was no longer an Italian power, but a superpower. Its gaze turned east. There sat a man with an old debt to pay, Philip V of Macedon. At the height of the war with Hannibal, Philip had allied himself with Carthage. He had bet on Rome's destruction. Rome did not forget. When Greek cities came asking for protection from Philip's expansion, the Senate had its pretext. The Second Macedonian War began. Roman command went to Titus Quinctius Flamininus, barely 30, ambitious, and unlike most Romans, a genuine admirer of Greek culture, which would not stop him from burying the Greek way of war. To understand this battle, you have to understand the two systems, because they embody two completely different answers to the same question. The Phalanx was a single compact mass. Thousands of men, shoulder to shoulder, each holding a sarissa, a pike up to 6 meters long. The first 5 ranks projected their points forward at once, attack it head-on, and you faced a walking wall of iron you couldn't even reach. Frontally, on level ground, the Phalanx was close to unbeatable, but it came at a price. It only worked as a whole. Rough ground tore gaps in the ranks. Turning was nearly impossible, and a phalangite who lost his formation was holding a 6-meter spear and little else. The legion was the opposite. Instead of one block, many small ones. The Romans organized their infantry into maniples, units of about 120 men. Each maniple could advance, give way, or pivot on its own. Short sword and large shield instead of a pike. Less raw impact head-on but mobile on any terrain. A wall versus a toolkit. On the morning of the battle, the terrain would decide. Both armies, roughly 25,000 men each, were camped on opposite sides of the same ridge. Neither knew the other was there. Thick fog covered the hills. Both commanders sent patrols up to the crest. In the fog, they walked straight into each other. A skirmish became a fight. The fight became a vortex. Both sides fed in reinforcements piece by piece. Neither was willing to give up the ridge. Philip faced a decision, committing his phalanx on broken, hilly ground. But his vanguard was reporting success. Philip led his right wing up. His left wing under Nicanor wasn't even fully assembled. Some units were still out foraging and would spend the day chasing the battle. At first, everything pointed to a Macedonian victory. Philip's right wing formed up on the crest, double depth, sarissas leveled, and rolled down. A phalanx charging downhill, the most terrifying thing the ancient world had to offer. The Roman hastati threw their pila and then tried to get past the wall of pike points. They couldn't. The Roman left was ground down the slope step by step, casualties mounting. If the battle had been fought on this side alone, Rome would have lost. Flamininus saw that his left wouldn't hold, so he did the only right thing. He abandoned it. He rode to his intact right wing and hurled it, war elephants leading at the other half of the Macedonian army. And that other half was not ready. Nicanor's wing was only now arriving on the crest in fragments. No closed formation, units still climbing, sarissas still shouldered. A phalanx that isn't in phalanx formation isn't a wall. It's a crowd carrying very awkward spears. The elephants smashed into the disordered clusters, and behind them the maniples poured into every gap. Nicanor's wing shattered. The battle now presented an absurd picture. On one side, Philip was winning. On the other, Rome was winning, chasing fleeing Macedonians. It wasn't either commander who saw the opening. It was a nameless officer. A Roman military tribune glanced back across the battlefield and saw it. Philip's victorious phalanx had followed the slope down, deep into the Roman lines. Its back was exposed. The tribune peeled roughly 20 maniples out of the pursuit, wheeled them around, and led them into the rear of Philip's phalanx. This is exactly where the Roman system paid off. 20 maniples could do that, because each of those units could maneuver independently. For the phalangites, there was no answer. turning around with a 6-meter sarissa in closed formation on a slope. Impossible. Some Macedonians raised their sarissas upright, the traditional signal of surrender. The Romans didn't know the signal or ignored it. The legionaries went in with the gladius against the defenseless rear ranks. The victorious half of the Macedonian army was destroyed. Around 8,000 Macedonians were killed and 5,000 captured. Rome lost about 700 men. Philip escaped with the remnants of his army. A year later, at the Isthmian Games, Flamininus had it proclaimed that the Greeks were now free. The cheering was so loud, birds fell dead. In practice, free meant free under Roman supervision. Macedon had to surrender its fleet and give up every possession outside its heartland, and the old question, legion or phalanx, was considered settled, not because the phalanx was weaker head-on. The flexible system forgives mistakes, accidents, and bad ground. The rigid one doesn't. Macedon would try once more anyway. A generation later, at Pydna, the phalanx faced the legion one last time, but that's a story of its own.